Okay. We have quite a few participants online. We have one participant here in person. I do appreciate the show of our district team. We have, in no particular order, Dr. Knappich, our Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services, attending this evening, Dr. Harris, Elementary Education, Dr. Macias, our Interim Superintendent for the district, as well as two of our board members, Lynette Cano and Emily Weisberg, and then another staff member from Huerta. So appreciate everyone that came out this evening and those of you tuning in online. I'm going to pull up our presentation and make sure we're sharing that with those of you at home. Again, I'll do my best to monitor the Q&A throughout tonight's presentation. I'm happy to pause and respond to some of the questions that come up through that. Otherwise, again, we will make sure we respond to everyone before the end of tonight's presentation. So you are joining us for our first LCAP meeting of the school year. This 25-26 school year. Our LCAP process is really to look at this year's plan, look at this year and how we're doing, and make evaluations and determinations on any adjustments we may want to make for next year's plan. That would be the 26-27, which will complete the 3-year cycle of our LCAP. So we're in the middle of our year 2. Next year will be year 3 for our district LCAP. And so those of you that are maybe joining us for the first time to talk about our LCAP, that stands for our Local Control and Accountability Plan. LCAP is a 3-year plan that helps us address the needs of specific subgroups and meet our local priorities. It's an opportunity for us to gather information from different educational partners, including our community, parents, administrators, our teachers union, our classified union, and really come together around what are our goals as a district. How do we best leverage resources to support our students? Components of our LCAP include our budget overview, which looks at our total budget for our district and the slice of that budget known as supplemental funds within our LCAP. There's a plan summary. There's a requirement to engage educational partners. Our goals, which are aligned to our district goals, and then a portion that's specific with our supplemental funding for increased and improved services. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. Our translators just put a hand up if I need to slow down, but I'll do my best. So plan requirements. The goals within our plan must be aligned to state priorities and our local district vision. We have 4 goals within our district, and I'll share those 8 priorities that the state requires as well. Within our LCAP, we have metrics that are established and maintained throughout the 3 years based on our goals and the actions that we have within those goals. Many of these metrics are required metrics by the state using CASP results, our state testing, state assessments, as well as dashboard results from the California dashboard. Action items are subject to review based on our budget, changes in demographics, and our past performance as far as improving outcomes for students. And the creation of our LCAP must include stakeholder input or educational partner input, representing the demographics of the school district and specifically the populations that we serve with our LCAP. So the 8 priorities that the state requires us to meet in our local control and accountability plan are basic services, which is the foundation of our programs, implementation of our state standards, which aren't new. We've had Common Core standards for quite a few years now. But we're continuing to evolve with our understanding and how well we implement those. Student engagement, school climate, student performance outcomes, parent engagement, course access, particularly in high school with access to honors, AP, and other high-level courses, And lastly, other student outcomes, other than just what we can measure in state assessments, math and English. So our local goals, aligned with those 8 state priorities, are for us to create an atmosphere where all students are college and career ready via high quality instruction. Goal 2 is for students to be physically, emotionally, and mentally healthy. Number 3 is to recruit and retain high quality employees. And our 4th goal as a district is efficient and effective operations. So you will see these 4 goals in our LCAP. This is how our LCAP's organized, with goal 1, college and career ready, being our primary goal that we support through our actions and supplemental funding. Next being students being physically and emotionally healthy, supporting the whole child. That's the bulk of the budget when it comes to our supplemental funds, is supporting those 2 goals, primarily because they're goals and actions that can directly support students in classrooms, and we want our funds and resources to go directly to students. So this is an important slide to LCAP, and this is fairly new information as of November of our unduplicated student count. So this is reporting that we submit to the state through what's called CalPADS, is a state information for student data. And these are numbers that are reported in a November window based off of our enrollment on Seabeds Day, which is the first Wednesday of October. So any student enrolled on the 5th of October can count towards these totals. But we have to, as a district, identify and report specific populations for supplemental funding. These students are called our unduplicated pupil count. Unduplicated is the term used here because these students only count once in our grand total. So if you look at the 4th column, total unduplicated, you're going to see that doesn't add up if you add up all of the other subcategories across the bottom row there. And the reason being is we may have students that meet multiple categories, such as a student who is an English learner and is also qualifies for free and reduced meals. So they count in each of those categories, but do not count twice in our grand total. That student only counts once, hence the term unduplicated pupil count. The takeaway on this slide, though, is while our English learner numbers are decreasing slightly, which is a good thing, means that we are reclassifying students as English proficient. Our number of free and reduced numbers have increased, meaning our total unduplicated count has gone up slightly from last year. So our total as of November is 5,528 students. This is a really positive thing for our supplemental funding in LCAP. The reason for that is this sets the percentage of our base budget in our ADA that we get for supplemental funds. So this is consistent. Even though our overall district enrollment is declining, this population has increased slightly, which means that our revenues for supplemental funding should stay pretty consistent for this year as well as next year. I owe a big thank you to our food services department. They help facilitate the receiving and processing of our lunch applications and income surveys. Also want to thank all of our staff at our elementaries and middle schools, our Title I schools, who made a significant push to get families to complete these applications. It's more than a meal, and you've seen that campaign or those flyers go out. We receive additional funding for students who qualify for free and reduced, aside from just the meals that we can provide. This is funding that provides services, positions, staffing in our classrooms. And so it's vital that all families consider that application and complete it so we can receive all of the funding that we're entitled to as a district. But having said that, these students generate the funding that are seen here. Our free and reduced meal program participants, our foster students, our students experiencing homelessness, and our English learners. If they bring in these funds for supplemental, they're also who we have to prioritize when we spend these funds. So when we create action items within our goals of college and career ready or whole child, we really have to find actions and services that are going to improve the educational experience for these students more than their peers. And so that's part of the requirement of our LCAP and how we have to spend those supplemental funds. And so you'll see that when we get into some of these categories and uh, uh, how we break out our budget to support these students. Which brings us to an important slide. And my translators have asked me to slow down, so I'm going to slow it down. And I'll take a drink of water while I do that. So over the past couple of years, when it's come to our LCAP specific budget, which is our supplemental funds, we've had accumulated a significant reserve that we've been spending down in carryover. This reserve was accumulated during COVID-19 pandemic and distance learning, mainly because there were one-time funds, ESSER funds, federal funds, state funds that were one-time funds that had to be spent within a certain timeline. And if we didn't spend them, we had to give them back. What that allowed us to do is provide some of the services that are in our LCAP, pay for those services through those one-time funds and build up a little bit of a reserve within our supplemental budget. Now, some districts have took that funds and put it back into the base fund. Burbank Unified kept that as a reserve specific to LCAP. And so we've been spending that down over the last couple of years. And you can see that in our carryover amounts, 2 million, 1 million, 700,000, 500,000. Where we are over the last 2 years is starting a conversation each year of we need to cut. We're going to have to reduce our spending in our LCAP and our supplemental funds because we just don't have these carryover funds that are going to last. And we're spending more in our expenditures than we're receiving in revenues. And so we have to trim. What you can see here is that we've done the trimming and we've gradually decreased our spending to be within our revenues. So it's an exciting moment for all of us here at the district office when it comes to this specific plan and budget to be able to say we don't have to start the conversation the same way we've had to start it the last couple of years. We're not starting by saying we know we have to cut. We are spending within our means when it comes to this fund. And we are in a place of stabilization as long as our demographics don't change significantly in the next couple of years. Having said that, it's important that we still facilitate the primary purpose of the LCAP. And the primary purpose is an annual review of, are we meeting our goals? Are the actions that we're putting in place improving student performance? Basically, are we getting the most bang for our buck that we feel like we can get? And so that's really the process we want to do this year. Is not have to have a conversation and start immediately by saying these are the things we have to take away, more of what's working, what's not, how can we improve? And so that's going to be sort of the mantra for this year of going into year 3, of really looking at where we're doing well and where we can do better. So I'm going to pause for just a second. The next group of slides is really getting into the details of the goals and the actions within our LCAP and how we expend these funds. But I kind of gave a broad overview of what the LCAP is, where we are year 2 before we get to year 3. Year 3, we have to report out, are we meeting our metrics? So within all of our metrics, we have to say, this is our target that we want to hit. And we're required to report, did we meet what we intended by year 3? That's really our opportunity to evaluate our goals, make any significant structural changes to our LCAP. Since we're in year 2, going into year 3, it's really more about modifying what we have within our LCAP already to best meet our needs. If I don't see any current questions in the Q&A, but if anyone does have any questions or anybody here in the audience, there is a mic to ask any questions before we get to the next group of slides. So with that, I'll pause, give appropriate wait time, take another drink of my water, and let our translators catch their breath. So goal one of our LCAP, this is the meat and potatoes of our plan. And this is to support students instructionally to be college and career ready. So you can see the items listed here. These are some big ticket items. So elementary RTI, this is important. This is where our English learners, our students who are socially, economically disadvantaged, they need that additional support. Tier 2 interventions, Tier 3 interventions in math, language arts, to really support them to be at grade level and not fall behind grade level. Another big ticket item, professional development day costs. $1 million pays basically 1 day of PD for all of our staff. We completed a very robust professional development day on October 13th. There may be some parents that noticed that day when they had their kids at home with them, but I trust us. We really used that day strategically and effectively to provide some high quality training to all of our teachers and staff, and really focus on supporting these subgroups through different interventions, assessments, and instructional strategies. You can see a handful of other items, but I want to point out one specifically, and that's our behavior specialists. That's 9 FTE. That's a change in our LCAP from year one. So last year we went through this process of starting the conversation of saying we need to cut to our LCAP. We need to reduce by probably $500,000. Through that conversation, there was a lot of twists and turns, and we had to really reevaluate, well, what are the needs of our students? And through that process, it was determined to transition from intervention specialists at our elementaries to provide each school basically with a behavior interventionalist or behavior specialist, or a BI, I should say. So the proper term here is behavior interventionalist. Part of that was with conversations with BTA, with site leadership about what they were seeing as far as behavioral concerns at their sites. Extreme behaviors, more than what we've used to, or behaviors that really were escalating in certain classrooms and unique circumstances. So what that behavior interventionalist does is allows us to sort of create a plan and identify when these behaviors, what's triggering them. How can we track data rather than just responding to the behavior, sort of addressing it before it ever comes to fruition. And so that was an investment, an adjustment made in our plan from year one to year two. That's a perfect example of looking at how we can best meet our current needs and demographics. Please, if you have any questions about any specific items on this slide, go ahead and throw those into the Q&A. One other one I want to point out is the elementary ELD instructional assistance. That's almost a $900,000 item on this slide. That number went up significantly from last year if you are tracking our LCAP from year to year. And what you're going to see is when I go to the next slide, that the top item there, the English learner program, minimum program requirements, that item dropped by almost $1 million. And so what you're seeing is we wanted more specificities. A lot of these instructional assistants were historically categorized as part of that basic or foundational program. We really wanted a clear picture of, well, how many aides do we have? How much do they cost? So that's the dollar amount associated with that. This English learner program now only really represents staff that implements the program. So that would include an ELD specialist at sites, staffing there, ELD technician, so support technical staff for data entry and tracking of ELD students, as well as our main hub, our district staff that really coordinates the whole program across the district. So that amount has gone down. The other one that you will see that has gone up is secondary ELD assistants or aides. And so that again, we're just being more specific about that's how much those positions actually cost. Another big ticket item is our full-time curriculum specialists for all elementary schools. These are TOSAs, teacher on special assignment. They really serve a strategic purpose in working directly with our teachers to improve classroom instruction and adjust as necessary with intervention or reteaching, whatever the needs of the classroom or students are. They really are the boots on the ground supporting our teachers in that work. There may be other questions on this, but a lot of them are smaller items. I'm trying to make sure I touch on all the big ticket items. We're now moving to goal 2. So though everything that I shared in the last 2 slides is our college and career goal. Goal 2 is supporting the whole child, mentally healthy, physically healthy students. So how we do that is through a couple different programs, one of which is our Monterey program. This is one of our high schools. It's a continuation school. The majority of students that attend Monterey are socially, economically disadvantaged. And so that's a big part of why we support that program through our LCAP. It's also a lot of credit recovery, intervention, supporting students that need a second opportunity or just an alternative environment to what our comprehensive sites can offer. So it's a unique program that fits well here. Another one is our elementary wellness and behavior specialists. So I wanted to specifically point that out as well, as we had when we made the determination to not continue with the intervention specialist position at elementary sites. Part of that was to create 3 positions that could support all of our elementary schools, known as our wellness and behavior specialists. They model a position that was in place the year prior for secondary. When we made the decision as a district to close our community day school, we created a program called SOAR at Monterey. And part of that implementation was to create 2 high school positions that were wellness and behavior specialist positions. And really what these positions do is they coordinate resources at each site for these students that have significant behavioral concerns, attendance concerns, or just general welfare wellness concerns. They're familiar with city resources, local resources, best laid plans or best interventions that can be used by site staff on how to support a student that has those special needs. They also have a caseload that they work with, so that if the child moves schools, relocates, they can support that child even if they go to a different site. So great opportunity for our staff, and many of our intervention specialists are serving in that role or as a behavior interventionist previously mentioned. That brings us to our last item here is our SOAR program. That was I believe part of our first year LCAP plan when we created year 1 of this LCAP. But really that was again the creation of that program was on the precipice of closing our community day school and making sure we had a mechanism to meet the needs of students who had significant behavioral needs. And it's located at Monterey campus as well. Last goal that we're going to discuss tonight is goal 3. This is our retention and recruitment of high quality staff. And so the focus for this work has really been around DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, providing training for our staff, creating site leads at each site. And if you've been with us the last 6 years, really, what you'll see is we this started with a consultant that came and brought information and awareness and sort of got this program, the seed of this program started. And now we're at a place where we've really allowed our sites to facilitate this through their own teacher leads and staff leads. And that's one of the unique wrinkles of this actually is it's branched outside of just our teaching staff to include classified staff as some of our DEI leads too. So we're really committed to this work. It's a high growth opportunity for some of our staff to shine, but really support each other in the work of supporting our students and each as other staff members as well. So that's our entire budget that's included in our supplemental. We don't have any supplemental funds that are spent on goal 4, which is our effective operations and efficient operations. That's really a general fund item, along with bond measure or other maintenance funds. So that's the bulk. My last slide for this evening is really about is a collection of LCAP resources to get more familiar with our LCAP process. But I want to reiterate kind of where the message of this evening is that for the first time in quite a while, we get to start this year without having to immediately jump into a discussion of what we need to remove or take away from our LCAP. I highly encourage everyone that's participating tonight to tune in to our board meetings. We have 2 in the month of December, tomorrow and next week. There'll be an update on our general fund, and the health of our basically our revenues as a district, not just this particular fund. And there are going to be conversations about some reductions that are going to have to be made over the next couple of years. And so, having said we're in a good place with LCAP, we do have to be cognizant of we may have to make adjustments as a district in other places, and that may influence some of the decisions we make in LCAP as well. So this isn't an isolated pocket. Some of those big items through our general fund. There may be some discussion about how LCAP can help support or still provide some of those services if we have to make reductions there. So with that, encourage you to come to those. I'm going to post the link to our website one more time, but take any questions from any of our participants, either online or here in person. I encourage you to put those in the Q&A as well, so we can document those. So first question is the trajectory of the surplus. The trajectory of the surplus was still downward. What is the current budget versus funding? So if we're talking about LCAP specific, what I can say is that our revenues are stable. So our expenditures are within what we are receiving as revenues each year. So in that sense, we're not anticipating having to make any significant budget changes within LCAP. That being said, if we see our demographics change next year or the next couple years, then we may have to revisit that. If that's a question specific to our general fund on an overall budget, really that's a question for tomorrow evening at the board. Great question, though. Thank you. Okay. I will post in case you joined a little late. Link to our LCAP page. So I will post, or we as a district will post a recording of tonight's meeting on our LCAP site, and our presentation is available there. I thank everyone for tuning in this evening. We will have more meetings in the spring, and we will send out reminders BUSD e-news about those upcoming meetings in January and February and March. Appreciate everyone this evening. Have a great holiday. Thanks. Thanks.